Welcome back to 40,000 Layers. We're going to carry on painting a Slith and talking about the Drukhari.
Yeah.
I've just realised that I'm going to need to pour some more Retributor armor because it's dried out. Oops. I can't put the metallic paints on my dry palette on my wet palette because otherwise it goes through to the sponge thing and ruins it. So it dries out quicker. I have to hurry up.
Okay. So that was the Slith, and there's a few other kind of alien-y types who make a part of the Drukari forces. I believe you saw some of them. Brain Boy is one of them.
Brain Boy?
Yeah, the guy who's like shackled and has like a brain on top of his head. I can't remember their names off the top of my head.
I don't know if I know these.
Okay.
Brain Boy?
Yeah, oh god, I don't want to go. Are they grotesques? No, they're not grotesques.
I mean, I probably have seen it and I thought that's going to be way too hard to paint, so I'm not doing that one.
Medusa. Like Medusa.
Yeah.
The second I send you this image, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember these. So it's these guys.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, say it.
I do recognize it.
Yeah. They were one of the minis we were looking at. And Tash was like, no, I don't want to paint brains.
Honestly, whenever Sheepy sends me a mini, I'm like, no.
It's very true, actually, yeah.
But no, wait, it's because he sends me things that are like ugly.
Really cool.
And I don't want to paint them. Like, if I'm going to be looking at a mini for hours and hours, I want to like it.
Yeah. Well, if you like, we can kind of go over. There's not super load of the kind of extraneous forces for the Dark Eldar. There's the Medusa, the Urgle, the Slith, basically. There's like the main.
Yeah, forces. Like how.
I thought for this one because there's so much we can talk about. I thought I'd basically be like, hey Tash, what do you want to talk about? So we've got the Archons.
Okay.
Who are essentially like the lords of the Dark Eldar.
Yeah.
Then we've got some of the different like factions and forces, like the witch cults and the homunculi and the cabals and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Then we got the webway, which we can kind of talk about a little bit more, but probably wouldn't be super long. We could go into some of the Dark Eldar characters, which is like Vect and Lilith and etc. And then I have an instance of a Drukari raid, which is kind of like the Imperial example of like a classic Drukari raid, and I thought we could talk about that.
I think the raid sounds like fun.
Yeah. Okay. There's a very strong possibility that essentially this will lead into you being like, what's this?
What's this? What's that? Who's that man?
So this was in like fairly recently in 40k terms. It's M41944.
Yeah.
And it was called the Raid on Grey Shroud. Grey Shroud is a planet, Imperial planet. By the Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue, and it was an Imperial hive world. So, essentially, we're going to go through like the phases of a Dark Eldar attack or raid on a planet. Kind of like about 24 hours. It's a bit less than 24 hours. So, essentially, this is them being like, yo, we want to raid you and take slaves and fuck everything up. So, hour one, the outside system platforms with auger arrays and, you know, kind of like basically defense platforms are all simultaneously destroyed by lance weaponry.
Uh-oh.
At the exact same time, there's a solar flare from the star of the system.
Oh.
So they don't notice that everything is destroyed.
Oh.
And these are all like first warning things.
Mm.
So the flare happens, and it kind of like it clouds the auger arrays.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the auger arrays are destroyed, which doesn't register. So they're like, "Oh, we didn't notice that, and now we can't see anything."
Oh.
You know, in terms of like,
yeah, they've like
technologically,
yeah. Okay.
the actual people can still see.
You can still see.
About 3 hours after this, the orbital defense platform that the planet had stops working.
Dun, dun, dun.
Basically, scourges deploy from the webway.
Okay, but what's a scourge?
Okay, so a scourge is a Drukari who's been genetically altered.
Yeah.
Where they graft wings onto their body, and they so you've probably seen them because they're the winged Drukhari.
Okay.
They basically act as like not really air forces, but more of a jump infantry. You know, like as if they had jump packs, kind of assault. They have a tendency to fly around Komara on like thermals and stuff, like a bird. I think they often act as snipers as well. But no, essentially, yeah, like bat wings, bird wings, they get you know like the swooping hawks of the Eldar, very clearly mechanical wings, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of like use boosts and stuff like that. The Dark Eldar are like, fuck that shit. Let's just take some wings and graft them onto your back.
Like yeah, surgery. I mean, why not? That's a pretty normal thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Or not.
So they do a few different things. They have a tendency to like fly around the city and, you know, perch outside a window and be like, "Ooh, I wonder what I can hear here." And because Vox transmissions, you know, like radio transmissions essentially, are easy to intercept, and the Dark Eldar, we haven't really got into this, but the Dark Eldar hate psychers.
Yes.
So obviously,
I know that.
Communication via like astropaths or any type of psychers is not allowed. They use the Scourge to communicate and to like send messages.
Okay.
Because, you know, you could have someone like run out there. But that could take a while. So if you've got like a bat person hanging around, you're like, yo, take this. Also, the Drukari are really extra with their messages. Like, they'll literally dip their messages in poison. And the antidote is held by the person getting the message.
Oh, so you can't, like, they can't be read by...
Yeah, so they essentially poison you and go, hey, if you don't deliver this to the person, you'll never get the antidote.
They're so mean, like, all the time.
It's kind of extra as well. You know, it's like, Jesus, that's... Like, I understand it, but that's really going above and beyond just in terms of secrecy. Also, like, the Scourges are kind of integral to general day life. So there is a tendency if you like are pissed off and you're not particularly important in Dark Eldar society and you kill a Scourge, in general, you're going to get punished, like, by death, most likely.
Yeah.
So it can be useful to be a scourge because you're kind of treasured as much as anything is treasured in Dark Eldar society.
But just don't mess up.
It's also a fairly high badge of honor almost.
Mm-hmm.
The Drukari love body modification and shit, and getting some wings grafted to you, and you know, it's quite
extra.
Yeah. So
they fly in to get to the planetary defense platform, or destroy that.
Yes. I'm just seeing if this is important. There are also Solarites, but they're just leaders of the Scourges.
Yeah.
I guess they tend to be the better, more skillful ones with better gear and stuff.
Been flying for a bit longer.
There's Nefertari, who's a they always have like notable Scourges. Except for if we talk about her, then we have to talk about Trueborn and not Trueborn, which we haven't got to yet. And you'll be like, what's the difference between a Trueborn and not Trueborn Dark Eldar? So we'll go back to the raid. So some Scourges like fly out of the webway and use haywire weaponry to knock out the generator, or as it's called in 40k, because of course it's the Genitorum. You know, you take generatorum.
You can't just have the word be the word. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not sci-fi. Generator? No, you put an or an eum.
Oh, it's so unfortunately true.
There was a 40k show that I did where the crew wanted to have like an anchor style cannon that fired like an anchor and like hooked into other ships so they could pull it in. They decided to call it the anchoratorium.
Yeah. Which
anchoratorium. Yeah.
Just makes total sense.
It's very 40k. Essentially the orbital defense platform is then in the middle of space with no power and the oxygen venting, and they had no power, so they couldn't let anyone know what happened. And then suddenly
die horribly.
Well, they die horribly to mandrakes.
Mandrakes, and what are they?
So mandrakes are former Drukari.
Okay.
That are kind of twisted monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't looked into mandrakes that deeply.
You should have known this was going to happen.
So they're essentially like Eldar or Aeldari or Drukhari who were part of. There's no definitive like, because it's from the perspective of the Imperium. Some of these units are like, well, some people say that they're this and other people say that they're that, and who knows what they really are. And it's like, you wrote the lore, you know what they are. Like it's possible that they're like Eldar who are semi-demonically possessed, or like
okay,
it's also possible that they're like they're Eldar who pretty much had all of their souls sucked out, or Drukhari who had all of their souls sucked out, except for a little bit. but not enough to maintain like any form of what we would call humanity.
Yeah.
You know, like they're basically just crazy killing machine type things.
How does it feel worse for the Drukhari than the Eldar?
Yeah. They're very sneaky, shadowy. They are often used as assassins, or you know, they actually absorb light. They're like skin.
Oh, okay.
You know, so that's why they're so what's it called? Sneaky. They're a little bit I'm trying to find the right way to describe it. They're a little bit warpy or magic-y, maybe? I'm not 100% sure.
But that's not... we don't like that in the Drukhari.
Yeah. They still have some sentience, but like even the Drukhari, even the Archons are kind of a little bit scared of them.
Oh, they're like just kamikaze them into whatever it is.
Do you remember the Necrons? I think they're called Destroyer Necrons, who have kind of lost their sanity.
Yeah.
And they just want to destroy all life.
Yeah.
So this runs into a funny thing, which it essentially Orokin like forms an alliance with a like little unit of destroyer a destroyer Necron faction, because there's a planet that him and Trazen are fighting over, and he's like, yo, what's up, there's a whole load of life over there, how about I point you towards it? And they're like, okay, cool. And he's like, all right, sweet, go fuck up that planet because I want that later. And they're like, affirmative. And he comes back like 1,000 years later, and they've gone over like 20 islands. Because they're so thorough when they destroy life that they destroy all life. And the thing is every time they jump from island to island to destroy that island, more things start sprouting up on the island gone.
Yeah.
And after a while, they decided to just keep burning stuff until the air got so polluted that all the caps melt and just like, you know, just
kind of planet.
Yeah, just destroy the planet that way. But they still wouldn't be happy because there's still life in the ocean and shit like that. So they're like, they're working on ways to like boil the ocean and all this shit. And Orokin's like, actually, it's not Orokin who finds them, it's Trazen. He comes back like 1,000 years later and he's like, what the fuck are you doing?
What are you guys doing here?
It's again, it's just a really fucking funny scene. I love it. But they're a little bit like that in the sense that they have a different mentality to regular Drukhari.
Yeah.
You know, they'll sell their abilities to Archons and stuff like that for like slaves, but sometimes they're like, we will sell our services for a heartbeat or your true name or this person's voice. It's like, what the fuck does that mean?
Well, you don't mess with true names.
Yeah. But yeah, essentially the mandrakes are like stealth units for the Dark Eldar.
Okay.
So they kind of, you know, creep onto the defense platform, and it's like freezing cold, oxygen venting, can't call for help, and then the mandrakes turn up and they're like, yo, what's up?
Oh.
You want to die?
She's been like, I give up. And it's just like, that's fine. At some point, you just got to accept that they have won this section.
So this is like a few hours later, hour 7. There's an Imperial Navy warship called the Hammer of Pride that's in orbit above Grey Shroud because of some pirate activity recently. after they try and hail the defense platform, it's requested that the captain of the Hammer go and investigate. The captain's like pissed off with the PDF, the Planetary Defense Force, and goes towards the Hammer of Pride. Takes the hammer to the defense platform. Never actually gets there because an hour later, it comes under attack of Razorwing jet fighters, Void Raven bombers. These are like Drukhari attack ships, basically fighters, bombers, all that type of thing. Basically crippled their void shields and their weapons, and then got swamped for the because there were so many targets. The turrets couldn't get everything, and they got hit by a whole load of warheads, which basically hit the bridge and all over like important systems and things like that. The problem is like it didn't destroy the bridge, like it didn't even cause that much damage, but the warheads released a plague on board the ship.
I mean, that's the thing with the Drukari weapons that you said earlier.
Yeah.
Like, they don't kill as much as injure very effectively. Oh.
So the plague that was created by some Drukhari scientists essentially infects the brain and the neural system, and makes them readjust their heading.
What? Like the brain's heading?
No, the ship's heading.
Okay.
So the ship was heading out to the orbital platform to like check on it. Once they get infected with the plague, like kind of about 20 minutes later, they're like insane, laughing, shrieking, like running about the ship, and they change their course
to the planet.
On a trajectory where it hits the barracks of the Planetary Defense Force and kills hundreds of thousands of people in a plasmic explosion.
Of course it does.
Plus knocking out a significant number of the Planetary Defense Force. So, obviously, this kind of fucks up the atmosphere quite a bit.
Yeah.
Under the cover of that, a giant force of raiders, ravagers, venoms, all kind of like basically like hovery ship platforms, but like kind of enough to fit like 3 or 4 Drukhari on and space for people, like victims. Like shoot out from the webway and basically converge on one of the continents. With the PDF, like that section of the PDF annihilated, there's not many people to protect the planet. And a giant force of incubi and cabalites and scourges attack the primary generator of the continent, kill everyone in there, just because why not?
Why not? Why would they not do that?
and then rig the generators with hyperdense containment fields. So what it essentially does is causes, for about an hour, it causes the generators to run at even higher outputs.
Oh no.
Unable to vent or discharge what they're creating, it causes them to explode.
Yeah.
But because they are contained, it runs through all the ducts and cables that it was connected to.
And it explodes. No? Yes?
Well, so when it explodes, that explosion can't escape upwards because of the containment fields. So the only way the explosion can go is what the generators are connected to.
Yeah.
And the generators are connected to all the systems across the continent.
Cool.
For example, defense batteries, void shields, the hive.
The Drukari don't go by half, do they?
No, they really don't, and they're like they don't particularly care about fighting. They just want to do as much damage.
They just like
and
to
take
win.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
But the thing, like the most important, the largest gaps where the explosion can escape is where the biggest power is going to, which is things like void shields, which prevent like orbital bombardments from hitting targets, and also defense batteries, which stops any invasion forces hitting the planet. So all of those are knocked out, and also it knocks the majority of the power out.
Panic.
Which means that the second that happens, all the Drukhari that are like sitting around, waiting for these things to be knocked out, they're just like, oh, okay, cool. And they just fucking charge in there. They literally rip parts of the Hive City open and swarm in.
Oh man.
And by the time the backup generators kick in, which aren't even enough to power the majority of the hive, like they're already inside. And this is hour 9 of the invasion.
Yeah.
For the next like 8 or 9 hours, they hear about what's happening over there, and the rest of the planetary defense, on other continents, starts mobilizing. On the southern continent, other random settlements start getting attacked. So as they're mobilizing, they're like, it's time to reinforce the fourth regiment, who've actually been just straight up being destroyed by the
Replace
ship.
the 4th regiment.
So they're like, send reinforcements to help the hive on this continent. And then all the settlements on their continent gets attacked, and they have to reroute all of their reinforcements to deal with the attack on the other settlements.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about the Dark Eldar. Every time the Imperial forces turn up at a settlement, there are no more Drukhari there, and there are no more people there.
They're all gone.
Very, very often, when they actually get there, the Drukari have had enough time to kill or abduct all of the people of the settlement and set up an ambush. They then ambush the Imperial forces that are sent and destroy them.
They're just so mean. I think I just got silver paint in my hair too.
That's funny.
They're so mean.
On another continent to the east,
oh, Jesus.
two more PDF regiments deploy, like massive deploy, because there are things raiding some nearby agri settlements, basically, growing farms and stuff. They head up there in chimeras and troop transports, basically. They get there and it is deserted. Like there's nothing there, aside from, just like it's like a ghost settlement when they get there, except for servitors who are like farming servitors. You know servitors, right? Yeah, so they're kind of like half human people who've died, and then they get turned into like
servo skull, right?
It's more like
I mean, like I know of a servo skull, so
yeah. Servitors are much more like biologic dead bodies that are turned into, or alive people. It's often a punishment. That are turned into like mostly robotic, not aware but able to function. It's like if you take someone's body and then turn it into a robot servant.
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah, I mean that's 40k, right?
Yeah.
So these servitors are like farm servitors. So they essentially go around and they spray insecticide on food and on crops and things like that. As soon as the soldiers turn up, they turn on, like the servitors start acting again and just fucking spray combat stims into the atmosphere, or like massive, like huge sprays of like their drug sprinklers.
Oh dear.
It's the combat stims are essentially like friends on.
Right.
If you remember
Yeah.
that.
I remember.
So the PDF troops all inhale, because there's no way to avoid it. They don't have gas masks or anything. They just inhale pure combat stimulants, go insane, and rip each other apart.
You know, I don't hate that tactic.
Then there's another regiment there's another regiment on the North Continent who take drop craft to like go and assist the southern coast of their continent, unaware that also on board, like hidden away, are grotesques.
And what are grotesques?
So I'm going to send you a picture of grotesques,
okay,
because I feel like it's worth seeing. This is a grotesque.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know Bane from Batman?
Yes.
Yes. They are giant, flesh-crafted monsters who are like all bone and muscle and sinew, like super strong, melee. They just charge in and rip everything apart.
We're not messing with those.
They're mini insane, essentially. They're made by homunculi, who we'll talk about.
The next question.
Yeah. But they're basically just very high capacity destruction, foot soldiers, battering rams. They get pumped full with like drugs to drive them,
insane,
into a state of like hyper frenzy. And then they're just kind of let loose as opposed to guided too much.
Yeah.
They go and rip shit apart, and once it subsides a little bit, then they're brought back and they're modified more, and they're given more like crazy muscles and etc.
You did a good job. Let's give you more of that next time.
So that's what's hidden inside all of their drop crafts. They are in essentially stasis on a timer, where they have essentially like injectors that can inject them with drugs and things like that, which are on a timer, which will just essentially immediately wake them up and send them into a like frenzy. So all of these troops, all of this regiment is on board these like drop crafts and stuff, and suddenly these like giant muscle crazy Drukari horrors are like turned on, and just they like rip out of hidden like floor caches and the fucking lockers and all of this type of stuff. They just run around the whole of each craft and just destroy everything and kill everyone in there.
I just kind of feel bad for
so like the entirety of that regiment was aboard the dropcraft.
Yeah.
Like, none of them made it to their destination. They all crashed, and most of them fell into the water and disappeared.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's essentially all of the forces on all of the other continents. That's what happened to them. Like all of these fucked up tactics, which is just like you know, they're going to help settlements that are under attack, and they're drugged, and they're ambushed on the way, or they're ambushed there and they all die. And essentially, for those 8 hours plus, no reinforcements get to the hive that the Dark Eldar just ripped into.
Like,
and
hi.
the Dark Eldar take something like 10 million people as slaves.
Oh boy. That's
the Adeptus Arbiter, who we haven't spoken about yet, but they're essentially like judges in Judge Dredd.
yeah.
I mean, they're not, but they are. They're kind of a police force. They barely resist anything. They just get destroyed. All of the nobles do their best to like lock themselves in panic rooms and stuff.
Yeah, of course
and
they
just
do.
hope that they don't get taken. But they do anyway. Like the Dark Eldar just rip through everything and take everyone. By the time a pathetic token force of Grey Shroud Planetary Defense Force shows up, like what's left of them, there's barely anyone left. There's like a few people who've hidden and managed to like not be taken, but literally tens of like, I'm not sure tens of millions, but definitely millions of Imperial citizens have just been taken by the Dark Eldar. And in terms of Imperial history and everything, no one's ever seen again from that hive.
Oh.
And
that was like quick and scary.
That all happens and finishes in about 21 hours.
Yeah.
And that's the Dark Eldar.
Yeah.
So when I say they're not dangerous, I mean on a galactic scale. Even from a planetary scale, they can just fucking destroy everything. They are super scary and very, very like if you're a planet and the Dark Eldar are like, hey, I wanna fuck up your planet, we want to take some slaves. Unless you've got a really good Imperial Guard regiment or preferably some fucking Space Marines about, you're not going to have that much of a good time. Like, the Dark Eldar are still Eldar, even if they're, like, really twisted and fucked up and, you know, gross. They're very intelligent. They're, like, some of them are over 10,000 years old.
Yeah, and they've been working at this for a long time.
Yeah.
I made a big mistake.
And
I have silver on the pink cloth. And I'm upset. I'll clean it up, but it's a nightmare.
Yeah. But I thought maybe you'd be interested in, you know, like an example of an Dark Eldar raid to get a feel for like how they operate and how they is and how they be kind of thing, you know?
They didn't even need the 24 hours.
No. Like, literally, they probably could have still attacked and had the same outcome. But I think it's very apparent how, like, they don't look to waste their forces if they can.
They're not fucking around, are they? They're like going in to get what they want and leave.
Yeah. No, they don't want to waste their forces. They don't want to take any losses they don't need to, because they know how to, like, disable everyone's defense systems and get in sneakily and like fuck shit up and then set traps and you know, sow confusion and chaos and fuck everything up. So it's like, hell yeah, like, go do your shit. And then, you know, the unfortunate result of that is they take millions of slaves and torture them to reinvigorate their souls.
You know what? It's just,
you gotta make excuses for the Dark Eldar. Is that what we're doing?
No, maybe.
Do you like the Dark Eldar?
They're pretty badass, though.
They are pretty badass, though. I'm not gonna lie. I did a tier listing on the Barbarol for 40k factions. I think Drukhari were like second or third. I think they were like third, maybe fourth.
They are really metal. I wouldn't want to befriend one.
No, no, you're not going to. But in terms of like, so to give you an idea, because we're going to talk about them now because we mentioned them, so let's talk about them. This is an art rendition of a homunculus working on a grotesque. It's really cool and really metal.
Oh.
Yeah.
They remind me, the homunculus remind me of the Adeptus
Octopus.
Mechanicus, though, with
Yeah.
their extra appendages.
There is actually that's funny you say that, because there is actually a so that's grotesques. Where are the homunculi? There we go. There is a homunculi who like he wrote a book, or he sent a message to a Adeptus Mechanicus dude, like a character, and he's like, hey, I'm kind of slightly impressed with your ability to twist humans and make them into, you know, kind of mechanical abominations. If you'd like, I'd be perfectly willing to take you on as a student and teach you how to do it properly. How to turn your basically
boring human body.
Amateur art into amateur kind of like attempts at art into true art that I can do. Because essentially the homunculi are like mad scientists.
Yeah.
And they turn people into chairs while they're still alive.
It's scary.
So yeah.
I'm guessing they didn't take up the offer.
I don't know. I don't think so. I just remember hearing about that. I couldn't while I was doing my looking through everything. I couldn't find that story, and I was like, I really want to know where that story is, because that was an interesting one, especially having a Drukari who's just like, hey, what's up? You know,
you're not doing too bad, but let me, you know, if you want.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it really, as much as the Eldar and the Dark Eldar and all Eldari in general hate Slaanesh, they can't help but pursue perfection.
Yeah.
Like the homunculi, literally, they love to like distort flesh and to sculpt. You know, they are very much like the Simichi in Vampire the Masquerade. And they look on it as, you know, art. They try and perfect their art, and they try and perfect their craft. So they'll take, you know, like a person and give them like growth hormones, like massive steroids, muscle stimulants, and like swell and twist their body, and then start kind of like attaching injectors and pumps and, you know, like growing bones and all of this type of thing, and until they've created these grotesques. You know, they'll take a slave they took from that planet, and they'll turn them into one of those grotesques.
And it feeds Slaanesh in two ways, because it gets the energy and also the perfection.
Yeah.
And
then, you know, so like over multiple years, they'll kind of like build this giant muscled, huge bone, massive kind of titan of flesh and muscle and destruction, and then they'll lobotomize them. To the point where they're like they're kind of aware that things exist, but not really. To the point where
they've been aware that whole time for the suffering.
Oh yeah. This is why you don't get captured by the Drukari.
Don't get captured by the Drukari.
they don't want you to be, you know, they won't put you under and keep you in a coma or any shit like that. You're going to be fully aware the entire time as they're doing all this shit.
Yeah, no. Thanks.
They and the grotesques, like these giant muscle things, they are still semi-conscious, as in terms of like aware of what's happening to them.
Yeah.
Even when they're like mindlessly obeying orders and like destroying people and killing people, they still know what's happening. They still have part of themselves like aware and there, and you know, it's almost like they're in a dream type thing.
That would suck.
Yeah.
And this is why everyone in 40k needs cyanide tablets.
Yeah, they just need to not. I ran a Dark Heresy campaign for Metamancer.
Yeah.
Which Vandy was in.
Oh.
We had the Dark Eldar in that, and there was a moment when Vandy's character was like a second away from being dragged away by the Dark Eldar. And Meta's character and all of the other characters were like a hair's breadth away from just killing her before she got there.
Yeah, I mean,
but before she was taken, and luckily Meta's character as a sniper managed to snipe the person dragging her away. And I said, like, yeah, if Andy's character was taken away, we're not going to that scene. Like, you just make a new character. Like, your character's done for, and even if you could get them back, you wouldn't want to roleplay that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the homunculi, the grotesques they're utilized to do things like kill orc war bosses, or kill like a tyrannid. You know, they're almost like dreadnoughts, except for flesh dreadnoughts that the Drukari have created. And they're pretty much completely obedient. You know, like they'll wander around with a homunculi until they're given the command to attack. And then they'll go crazy and like release all that kind of pent up aggression and hate and confusion and shit, and just rip things apart. And then they're told to stop, and they'll just kind of like boop.
Just end. Yeah.
The funniest thing is when when a homunculi commanding grotesques is killed before the grotesques are killed, they'll just keep going forever.
Oh no.
So very often, if a homunculi is killed and a grotesque is in a fight with other, you know, like helping out a Drukari Archon or something attack somewhere, they then have to deal with the grotesque at the end of it, because they're still attacking and killing all the Drukari as well as the enemy.
Because yeah, they don't differentiate, do they? So
yeah. So yeah, that's a grotesque.
Okay. Well, we don't mess with those. Basically, just don't mess with Drukari. Like,
there was a homunculi who worked for, I think he worked for Vect. And I remember a scene that I read where essentially one of his Dark Eldar kind of underlings betrays him.
Mistake.
And there's this really creepy scene where the Dark Eldar has been captured and is in chains in front of him and is begging for forgiveness. And he's like, "Forgive you? Oh, my dear, there's no need to forgive you. There's no need to forgive you when you're going to be the most beautiful work of art I've ever created." And it's like, that's so fucking creepy, because he's like, "I don't care if you betrayed me. Now I have an excuse to apply my art on you." It's like, fucking hell. Stop. So yeah, like, there's a really nasty kind of evil scientist vibe to
I was gonna say
the.
side. I was like the whole side, basically.
Yeah, just. All right, so let's go quickly through some of the forces of the Drukhari.
Okay.
I won't get as in depth with them just because then we'll end up going for 300 years and into all the. There's the Hellions. They essentially have skimmer surfboard things. I'm not sure. It's basically like an engine with wings, and they stand on that.
Okay.
And they fly about head height, and just with like a massive double-bladed staff, and they just like stab people and cut people's heads off, and they're really quick and they're really agile, and they're a fucking pain on the tabletop, as I remember. And yeah, they just fly around.
Causing havoc.
Called skyboards.
Boards.
Skyboards.
Oh.
The thing they stand on.
Yeah.
Single pilot, anti-gravitic skimmers. There's some deeper things in it. Like they have their own kind of like organizations, and they really enjoy the speed and the freedom and all that type of thing. They tend to be kind of younger and a lot more thrill seeking.
Can they like move groups and stuff over time? Because I mean, 10,000 years is a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, not all of them live that long, to be fair. Usually it's like the higher ups, the archons and stuff, until they randomly get, betrayed
and murdered.
Yeah. The Hellions are kind of a bit more individualistic. Either they've been exiled from their cabals, or they just didn't want to be in a cabal, and they kind of they work in kind of gangs almost, and they have a tendency to be like, yeah, we'll work for you for now. We'll get a wage and a share. And the archons tend to be like, hell yeah, you're useful, so sure.
Yeah, I agree to that, and then I shall betray
you. You know what? They are very kind of West Side Story in a weird way.
Okay.
Where they have different gangs, and the gangs all hate each other, and they end up having like airborne fights between each other in Comorra. And they're all very like daredevil-y, It's why they tend to be younger, because young people, like, they tend to be a lot more riskier with their lives and etc. So yeah,
tempting Slaanesh with that danger.
That's the Hellions. We've kind of gone over the Scourge, the Wingeds.
Yeah.
The Medusae, they're just a kind of alien parasitic organism that lives in the webway.
Yeah.
They look like brain and
yeah, the brain person.
Yeah. they kind of so they float through. They float around and they feed on the dreams and nightmares of people. But if anyone from the real space comes through, they essentially can like sloop onto them.
Sloop, is that the technical term?
Yeah.
Okay.
They basically like absorb their dreams and nightmares and emotions like directly, and that lets them become a bit more physical.
Okay, I can't breathe when I do this section, so
yeah.
For a second, I'm gonna just have to.
Oh, no problem.
Not even perceive what you're saying.
Well, it's not too much to say past that, except for essentially they, like, if you like, they're kind of parasitic, so they take a host and like attach to them, and
But that's
then
not what Medusa does.
well, no, but they're not Medusa, to be fair. It's not a massive threat in general, but they can kind of cause people to like outburst in emotion, and they can actually absorb sensation and emotions and that type of thing.
Okay.
So they'll go with the Dark Eldar to fights and absorb all of the emotions in a fight.
But does it double the emotion or does it steal it from the Dark Eldar? Because I feel like
Well, during a battlefield, like it's different to when you're torturing someone one on one.
Yeah.
It essentially the Medusa can like walk around the battlefield while everyone's getting killed and in pain and all that type of stuff, and pick up as much as they can, and then they kind of go back home and then let it all out for the Archon or the important dude who's like, yes, give me all that pain, and
I'll give
so
you pain, Argon.
it's and also like absorbing that, they do have a host as well, and the host goes through a lot of that shit too. So it's like condensing all of that into a person and being like, yes, feel all this shit. It's like, oh god. If the Archon keeps him near him, then he gets to enjoy that as well. So yeah, it's a whole thing. These aren't aliens, are they?
Whew.
This is like a okay. So this is the Lamian, who are like female Drukhari who part of a cabal or a group dedicated to poison, drugs, and toxins. Essentially, they're assassins used by the Archons, and whoever else can
Afford them.
Interestingly enough, I think partially they have a bit of a rivalry with the Imperial Assassins, who we'll talk about them at some point. But the Imperial Assassins are like one of the more impressive factions of the Imperium. They've done a lot of good work. One of them even killed a Primarch.
Imperial assassins are not from the Imperium, though. They're
Yes, yeah, they are.
okay.
So the Imperial Assassins are from the Imperium. They're part of the Imperium. The Lamian are the Dark Eldar section of.
Well, my brain was
like,
just like killed a Primarch.
yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. So don't forget the Horus Heresy happened.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm assuming it was a naughty Primarch.
It
Got
was
in
a
trouble.
naughty. It was a naughty Primarch who we will talk about at some point.
Okay.
Also, a very interesting Primarch.
You said that not very many Primarchs have died as well.
Not very many have.
Okay.
Especially when you take into account Primarchs who have died, like possibly Alfarius and possibly Omegon, but maybe it was neither of them, and they might still both be alive.
Don't make me laugh when I'm trying.
Sorry.
I'm like, oh my god, painting's so hard. I'm trying to make it the best it can be because the tiny little mistakes on the Howling Banshee really bother me. But it's so difficult. Getting there. Slowly. I've nearly done with all the base colours. But holy moly.
Yeah, essentially they're just Drukhari females who like to
Like
poison
poisons,
stuff.
are assassins.
Assassin stuff, and they seem to be quite important though in the terms of Komara. So